not tragic destiny. Somebody took you from me, emptied out my soul. There's a garden down where the river flows, rich with the seeds we sow. That's where you're closest to me. I will wait in the garden as the night fills the sky. I will wait by all day it's dry. Well, it's so hard trying to rearrange the things that just can't change, the things that they say are to be. And tomorrow seems so far away, 'cause pieces of yesterday keep crumbling down on me. I will wait in the garden as the night fills the sky. I will wait by all the river's dry. In this life, in this love, trapped in a world of greed. In this life, in this love, live in eternity. In the garden, hope and memories grow. It's there that I'm not alone. It's there that I might find peace. I will wait in the garden as the night fills the sky. I will wait by the river, although the river is dry. I will wait in the garden as the night fills the sky. I will wait by the river, although the river is dry. Although the river is dry, yeah. Although the river is dry, yeah. Oh.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2020 Annual Garden of Peace Honor Program. Thank you to Mike and Dylan and the musicians for sharing such a moving performance with us. Every year, that song reminds us that there's hope and peace among us. Thank you to the audience for virtually attending this year's program. Although we're not together in person, we're still together, coming together tonight to remember and honor those who are engraved in the garden and provide a community of support for survivors to remember their loved ones. For me, there are two goals to this work. to ensure no more families and communities have to experience this kind of unimaginable loss. And when they do, to ensure all survivors get the support they need and deserve. I know this year has been so challenging in so many ways since we last gathered, and my hearts go out to all families for the pain and the anguish that has probably been experienced on any number of fronts, from the COVID pandemic and all that it has wrought to the murder of George Floyd and the unrest in our nation right now. And I pray tonight for Breonna Taylor and her family. These are challenging times, but I think why we need this garden and this community more than ever. Now, since I became your AG, that's meant working with a team in my office to try to work with others to move our laws, change things, put victims and families first. And I want to, in particular, thank my Victim Compensation and Assistance Division for their work and the work that they've done with survivor families and advocates. To survivor families and advocates, thank you for working with us. Thank you for pushing us. Thank you for making us serve you better. To all the family members here tonight, I know nothing can be said to ease the pain of your loss, a loss you endure and live every moment, every hour, every day. But thank you for allowing us to collectively remember your loved ones with compassion, support, and understanding. In a few minutes, we'll hear stories about Raheem and Shaquille Browder, about Stephen Odom. Michael will speak, as will Kim, and when they do, and I can't wait to hear from them, I know you will be reminded that you're not alone in this journey of grief and loss. You'll never be alone. We'll gather here year after year, virtually or otherwise, to remind you of that. We strive to bring hope to this evening and to destigmatize the experience of surviving homicide by coming together and listening to one another. Now more than ever, we all need to come together and stand up to this senseless violence happening all across this country. We'll continue to stand with one another and support each other through these difficult times. Together, I believe we can work through thoughtful and inclusive conversations to change and correct systemic racism and violence. We need to put an end to these horrific tragedies. Tonight, we remember all of our loved ones who are engraved in the garden, and will honor 20 new names that are being added to the garden tonight. I want to thank the Garden of Peace Advisory Committee, made up of survivors and service providers, founders and former board members, for their dedication to the garden and the community, and to thank them for all the work they've done so far in increasing the engraving capacity. I wish we didn't have that need to increase engraving capacity, of course. But while we do, we appreciate the work that they've done to make that possible. Thank you to our keynote speaker, Kim Odom, and our survivor speaker, Michael Browder. Thank you for sharing your stories and opening your hearts to welcome this community into your journey. On behalf of the Victim and Witness Assistance Board, Essex County District Attorney John Blodgett, and Hampden County District Attorney Anthony Gallooni, public board members Danielle Sicard and Lavinia Wiesel, thank you to all of you, you survivors, supporters, and providers, and others who joined us here this evening. Finally, I want to acknowledge some of the strongest and most committed advocates for families and victims and survivors anywhere. Liam Lowney and his entire team at MOVA for humbly accepting responsibility for the garden and for all you do every day to promote the rights and voices of crime victims and survivors. I'm honored to be part of this work today and every day. Be well and take care of yourselves. And we'll reconvene in person as soon as we can. But we'll continue on with this evening's program. And with that, I'll turn it over to our good friend, Liam Lowney.
Thank you, Attorney General Healy. Welcome everyone to the 2020 Honor Program. Thank you all for being here and joining us virtually. As we are each year we're joined tonight by families, survivors, providers, so many elected officials that continue to support the important work that all of us do to make our community safer. And each year, this is such a special event. And to be honest, I miss being together with you. I was thinking about this event, and I was thinking about how each year I walk down Somerset Street and I turn into the garden, and it's just as the sun's beginning to set and the air starts to feel cool and it's crisp. And for me, it's always like the start of autumn. And the first thing that I'm always struck by as I walk in are the faces that show up. So many faces. And seeing so many of you who are so familiar to me as we've walked the same path, losing a loved one to homicide. We're members of the same club, a club none of us wanted to join, but find comfort being in together. And as I turn into the garden and see families holding each other, they're identifying their loved one's name. I see so many families who have come since the beginning. And for them, this is an annual shared tradition, which is going to be followed by a meal together. For other families, it's very new and very raw and frankly inconceivable to them that they would be there. But for all of us, for all of our families, there's a shared recognition that the entirety of the person that we love and miss cannot be captured merely by the names and dates displayed. Our loved ones are bigger and more complex than that. And it's that reality that we share and that all of us carry together each day. And that brings us together. And while we come from many different places, it's that commonality and that experience that will keep us together. Because although we're socially distant, our community stays strong and supportive of each other. And at a moment when others would have us divided, we remain together like this. And we're together with our shared love of our families and of each other. But sadly, our community continues to grow, and violence remains a daily part of our lives, impacting families across our Commonwealth and across this nation. And tonight, we will honor all our loved ones lost to violence, and we'll honor 20 new names being added. And sadly, as more families and new names join our community, we need to grow our garden's ability to honor them. So I wanted to take this opportunity with all of you, as the Attorney General mentioned, to talk about our work expanding the Garden of Peace. In late 2019, the Massachusetts legislature invested about $500,000 into the Garden of Peace Trust Fund for the specific purpose of increasing the garden's capacity for engraving. As horrific as that is, as something that we need to do, this dedicated funding has provided us at MOVA the opportunity to begin planning and the design phases of that work, and eventually modify the existing space to enable the garden to accommodate new engravings in the years ahead. At the beginning of the year, MOVA and the Garden of Peace Advisory Committee, who you're going to hear from later, were to begin a process to plan for increasing that capacity in the garden. The process was obviously delayed for several months because of the COVID-19 pandemic that we're all living in. But since June, we've been working diligently with a landscape architect to create a plan and design that will honor those names who will be added in the future years. And at the same time, we're keeping with the garden's original design and intent. I just want to say we're so grateful to the commitment of Representative Kafka and Speaker DeLeo and Senate President Spilka, Chairman Mikowitz, Chairman Rodriguez, who worked together to get us the funding to do this. So in the coming months and the coming year, we will keep you updated as we expand the garden and put some work into expanding it. And hopefully next year, you'll see the results of these efforts when we're together in that beautiful space. So every year we gather, we invite a keynote speaker who can inspire us and bring us hope. And tonight's speaker will do just that. This year's speaker is a member of the Garden community. Her work is inspired by one of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s quotes: "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." Kim Odom was born and raised in Boston and currently serves as co-pastor at True Vine Church. Following the tragic death of her 13-year-old son, Stephen, to gun violence in 2007, Kim began working on violence prevention and intervention. She's worked at the Boston Public Health Commission's Division of Violence Prevention, served as a family support coordinator with the Violence Intervention Advocacy Program of the BMC, and worked as a field director with Operation Lipstick. Her advocacy and activism is extraordinary, and she's an inspiration to so many of us that do this work. It's an honor to welcome Kim Odom to the screen.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and thank you, Liam, for your words to the survivor community and your kind words to me, survivor to survivor. I'd like to thank Attorney General Maura Healey for her words on this evening. To MOVA and the staff of the Garden of Peace, I thank you for this honor to be the keynote speaker for this year's honor program. And to all of you joining this sacred virtual space, thank you for being here. The pandemic of COVID-19 has caused us to have to adjust to a new normal in our connecting and communicating with one another. And as the saying goes, where there is a will, there's a way. I'm glad there was a will and that a way was made for this meaningful occasion to happen. Tonight, I would like to talk about a time of reflection. In tribute to remembering, honoring, and celebrating the lives of our loved ones, to lift up their light in a time of reflection. Losing a loved one to natural causes is hard, even though you may have time to prepare for their transition. Losing a loved one to an unexpected tragedy seems even harder because there was no time to prepare for their transition. Losing a loved one to an unexpected tragedy that was deliberately planned by others seems the ultimate added insult to injury. Such loss is overwhelmingly compounded. What can you do? What do you do? Who gets held accountable, and how do you hold it all together? While reflection will have you in the valley of many questions to which you want answers to, the most important reflection is the life of your loved one, their legacy, who they were to family, friends, community, and even the mark they made in the world, even if the world didn't know them up close and personal. While reflecting on their life brings sadness because of their physical absence, it also brings joy because of the beautiful spirit they leave behind. A spirit that perhaps inspires hope in spite of and in the midst of the heartache and pain. That spirit of hope is powerful. It has the power to lift you up, because who better can make sure the reflection of their life is remembered, honored, and celebrated. That hope is so powerful, it is a lighthouse to others, the lighthouse of hope. In a time of reflection, let us remember our loved ones are gone physically, but never, ever forgotten. I realize there are some in this virtual gathering that are on different spectrums of this unchosen journey. I have heard it said, I did not choose this journey. This journey chose me. My feelings are mutual. Even as a minister with all my theological training, I still need to experience the lighthouse of hope. It does exist. You may be thinking, Reverend Odom, Kim, how can you say hopeful things? Our family is coming upon the 13th year since that unexpected tragic day, October 4th, 2007, when my 13-year-old son Stephen's life was taken by gun violence at the deliberate hands of another. We would later find that Stephen had written a peace journal as part of the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute's peace program in his school, the James P. Timilty Middle School. Stephen wrote his thoughts on violence and other concerns that were making the community and the world a terrible place to live. Those were his words. But he writes, after watching a peace video, that he believed our community should come together, stop the violence, and start peace. Those were his words. Stephen had hope. To honor Stephen's life and light, our family founded the Spot for Life Foundation. The acronym stands for the Stephen P. Odom Training for Life Foundation. The Spot's mission is to support and advocate for young people ages 6 years to 13 years old and their families, and to ensure that young people are able to recognize, envision, and achieve their full potential. It is Stephen's voice of hope that keeps me going, and the light of his spirit that brightens an overcast of sorrow on any given day or at any given moment. It is also the wonderful network of survivors I have met on this 13-year journey, who have taken pain and anger and turned it into power and action. Many survivor-founded, survivor-led organizations that created spaces and places to support those of us on this unchosen path. Perhaps you're not there yet, and maybe you feel you will never get there. That's okay. Hope can feel far off at times. Please remember, what's most important at the end of the day is the reflection of your loved one, remembering, honoring, and celebrating their life and the spirit they bring to lift you up. Sometimes that visitation puts a smile on your face just when you need it. Perhaps it's not a day of smiles, it's a day of tears. That's okay too. I once attended a healing service early on in this journey. The audience was getting a little restless and looking at the clock as a survivor was sharing her story and shedding tears through it. All I could think was, I was the next speaker, and I didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable with my story. But the minister said something to the audience that has stuck with me and given me strength to lift up the light of my son, Stephen. To lift up his light, to lift up that light and be a lighthouse of hope. She said, tears bring clarity. So when I cry, and I still cry, I know my tears have purpose. I want you to know your tears have purpose. Another wise, caring, and comforting counsel I received on this 13-year journey: be gentle with yourself. Chaplain Tina Cherry, founder of the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, has repeated these words to me on several occasions, and I share them with you this evening. Be gentle with yourself. Listen to the voice of hope today. It is the lighthouse of our loved one's spirit and legacy. Thank you for remembering, honoring, and celebrating their lives today. God bless you all.
Thank you, Kim. We're so grateful to have you as part of this community and in our world. Thanks for sharing your words with us tonight and your experience. At this time, I'd like to welcome another speaker from the Garden community, Michael Browder. Michael is a lifelong resident of Boston. He's the second eldest of 11 siblings, a loving father to 11 children, and a passionate mentor for the youth. As a 34-year veteran of the Boston Fire Department and a business owner, he's grateful for the counselors at the Salvation Army and youth centers who served as his mentors throughout his lifetime. Tonight, he joins us in a more personal role as the uncle of Raheem and Shaquille Browder. It's my pleasure to introduce you all to Michael Browder.
My name is Michael Browder. As Ms. Bennett, the speaker of this event in 2018, commented about saying yes when first asked to be the speaker. By doing such, she later realized the gravity of the impact that this has had on all of us. I am the uncle of two nephews who were the victims of homicide. Raheem Courtney Browder, age 20, was shot May 29th, 2011. His younger brother, Shaquille Browder, age 22, was shot January 11th, 2018, 7 years later. The sons of Karen and Kenneth Thompson, they leave 5 siblings. Since losing them both, words cannot express the hope that will be forever in our hearts. Raheem's family meant the world to him. His large extended family, mainly his cousins, were like siblings. His talks with his mom, Karen, always ended with a kiss and a hug and a "I love you." He once allowed his older brother to cut his hair for a package of Kool-Aid. Although the littlest brother, he seemed to be the most realistic and displayed strong family views. Raheem would be 29 years old. Shaquille, his younger brother, affectionately known as Swerve, was known for his generous and kindness, his gleaming perfect smile, and beautiful face. He was the joy of the family and often looked forward to his upbeat personality and his random dance moves during Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. Shaquille would be 24 years old. Nothing prepares you more for the sorrow, the pain, and the despair as the loss of a loved one by gun violence. The precious gift of life's lessons of love, faith, and commitment should not come at the sacrifice of human life. In hindsight, we would, if only we could, have a mother to have the opportunity to mature and nurture her daughter through adolescence and into womanhood. And a father the opportunity to further his son into manhood, to counsel, to instruct, to guide and advise, to hold, to pick up, to look back, and to look ahead with laughter. Although we are all from various walks of life and backgrounds, yet we have come to know and understand each other in a most profound way. As we look into each other's eyes and embrace, we know that we are forever connected. Forever connected to each other through the many support agencies that came to our assistance. The Boston Trauma Team, the street workers, the violence recovery programs, the Louis B. Brown Institute, the Boston Homicide Unit, the District Attorney's Witness Victim Advocates. As I say to all today, believe in God, be encouraged, and keep the faith. We cannot say that the challenges will ever stop, but we will all gain a better mastery of understanding and handling our affairs. And to you all, I say, God bless and God be with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing your journey and speaking so eloquently about Raheem and Shaquille. And it's a good moment to also highlight for folks here that those programs that Michael mentioned, there are so many programs for survivors of homicide out there, and there's no time limit on when you can call them for help. It doesn't have to be right after something happened, it can be years. And so if you need some support, please reach out to us and we're happy to get you connected. Now I'd like to welcome the Garden of Peace Advisory Committee to read the new names being added to the garden this year. We are so grateful for the dedication of this committee and these people. They've been dedicated to the garden for years, and their dedication has just continued on as they've worked with us at MOVA. So please join me in welcoming Christine Abrams, Danielle Bennett, Chris Dempsey, Lisa McHugh, and Beatrice Nesson to the screen. I'm really grateful for all they've done leading up to the expansion of the garden, supporting this event, and keeping us, working with us to keep the true purpose of the garden at the forefront.
Thank you, Liam. Kimberly Algier, Robert J. Bullitt, Lois Rose Centerfani, Teresa Corley,
Vanessa Courtney, Lee Arthur Daniels, Mary B. Fairbarn, Brendan Sullivan Flynn.
Robert N. Hickey Jr., Raina Renee QB Jones, Vanessa Grace Masucci, Michael A. Miranda, Kevin Tyler Parker.
Sean Paul, Rakishan Pedraza, Yves Rue Jr., Haki Sanders.
Ronald Sapp, Damian Spencer, Eric Lee Voshell, Anthony Woodbridge.
hell, blue sky from pain. Can you tell the green field from cold steel rail? Smile from veil. Do you think you can tell? Did they get you to trade your heroes and ghosts? Hard ashes and trees, hard air for a cool breeze. Don't come for a change. Did you exchange a walk on part of the board? Or lead road in a cage? How wish you were here with just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old ground, but having fun the same old fears. Wish you were here. Sing it home with us if you like. All we ask is give peace a chance. All we ask is give peace a chance.
I want to say thank you again to Mike and Dylan Verge for their beautiful and hopeful music. You know, you show up every year and you did again for us this year, and I'm so grateful that you did. Thank you so much. I want to take a minute to also thank Brenna Chase and Charlotte Hoff from MOVA for all they did to ensure that we could have this event with you this year. Taking an in-person event and switching it to an amazing virtual connection was no small feat. So thank you to them for being an incredible team. As we wrap up this evening, I want to thank you all for taking the time to be with us here and for opening up your hearts to our community. As I said at the beginning, I miss being with you. And while some of you may be together with loved ones tonight, I know some of you may be alone. As Kim said, please be gentle to yourself and take care of yourself. And remember, you're part of a community that supports you. Reach out to a family member to share a story, or please call us tomorrow at the Mass Office for Victim Assistance if you need some extra support. I know there's some information about our office in the chat. I wish you and your loved ones peace and good health. And while we can't have a community dinner this year, we welcome you to remain on the webinar just for a few minutes to chat with one another in the chat box or watch the closing slideshow. Thank you and be well.